Welcome back to another week of Nuggets. Thank you, Pastor Bob, for guiding us through last week's lesson about living wisely. This week, we'll be focusing on Ephesians 5:21-33. But in order to really try to understand what Paul is saying, we need to dig deep. Have you ever heard the saying, a text without a context is a pretext? In other words, if you take something out of context, you can pretty much get to whatever conclusion you want to. Let's try to understand the context of Paul's writings before reading the specific verses for today. Ephesus was a very big and important city in the first century due to its strategic geographical position in the Roman Empire. One of the 7 wonders of the ancient world was located in Ephesus, the great temple of Artemis, who scholars say was substantially bigger than the Parthenon in Greece. Artemis was a Greek goddess who the Romans had named Diana. She was known for being the goddess of the hunt, the wilderness, wild animals, nature, childbirth, caring for children, and chastity. The worship of Artemis was such a big deal that it was a source of economic profit for many, and it heavily influenced all areas of life in Ephesus. For example, such a powerful female deity allowed for women to see themselves differently in society, giving them much more autonomy and an identity away from their husbands. The religious environment in Ephesus was saturated with female authority and dominance because legend claimed that Artemis was born before her twin Apollo and actually helped her own mother give birth to Apollo. So Artemis was seen as having the power over life and death, and women saw her as a savior, particularly around childbirth, which was the most frequent form of dying for women of that time. Additionally, Artemis was deliberately celibate, and evidence suggests that she demanded sexual purity from her followers and/or abstinence. Priestesses, not priests, served at the temple. Now, on the other hand, we have the Jewish tradition and religious environment that was predominantly male, where women weren't even allowed to speak at a synagogue service. And so it is in this context that Paul tries to present a completely different and novel concept to the followers of Christ. He proposes submission to each other. Ephesians 5:21 says, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Or as another version states, out of respect for Christ, be courteously reverent to one another. Submission? Wait, what? So no more superiority or dominance? It is very likely that some women and/or wives in the female-dominated Artemis culture had an attitude of disregarding their marriage and lording over their husbands, and it is very likely that former Artemis worshippers brought over that culture into the church and were behaving improperly towards their husbands and men in their teaching sessions in their newfound church. And it is in this context that Paul writes in Ephesians 22-24, wives, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord. He's saying, you're serving God now, not Artemis anymore. It's a little different. The SDA Bible commentary states that the ethics of Christian relationships within the family are clear when once it is seen that difference and subordination do not in any sense imply inferiority. The submission enjoined upon the wife is of the kind that can be given only between equals, not as a servile obedience, but a voluntary submission in the respects in which the man was qualified by his maker to be head. But more about that coming up during the rest of the week. For now, that's our nugget. I'll see you tomorrow.